Hello, BookTube. I recently watched a video from a wise old philosopher about things that he's learned in his lifetime. And since I am a dewy 28-year-old, I thought we would look over some of those things and see how true they are, and whether or not we can extrapolate any more life rules from them. So this is stuff that I've learned on turning 28. Thing number one is you don't need to have a plan. To which my response would be, no, that's wrong. You don't have to be strict about these things, but thinking about what you're going to do is always preferable to not thinking about what you're do. Whimsy is wasteful. When people say, don't always have a plan, what they mean is your plans are irrelevant to me. We're going to find a few hidden meanings like that in this list, I think. Number 2 on the list is don't sweat the small stuff. Oh, and a little hint, it's all small stuff. To which I say, no. No, it's not all small stuff. First of all, you don't know what the small stuff is and what the small stuff isn't. And it doesn't matter anyway, because you're here to care. This is not a dress rehearsal for some eternal life somewhere else, as we're going to be getting to later in this list. You are here to care about things. Don't obsess about them. Don't fly off the handle about them. Don't be irrational in your caring, but you're here to care about things. Usually, again, with the code speak, when someone says don't sweat the small stuff, what they mean is, I'm not going to bother with your small stuff. Usually, that's what they mean. But even if they don't mean that, even if they're talking about in some other context, you're here to sweat the small stuff. So, sweat the small stuff. Also, I might point out that parenthetical second rejoinder there that was part of the mega best-selling book that drove me crazy for the better part of a decade. That little parenthetical rejoinder, oh, and by the way, it's all small stuff, is false. Manifestly false. I mean, it's all small stuff if you're thinking about one little rocky planet orbiting one ordinary star at the periphery of one ordinary galaxy. But it's not small stuff to anybody that actually is going through it. Pancreatic cancer, your uncle having pancreatic cancer is not small stuff. You having your heart broken by the first love of your life is not it's not small stuff. The condescension involved in the formula of, oh, by the way, it's all small stuff, has always bothered me. It still does. Let's see. Let's move on to bit of wisdom number 3, shall we? And that is, go outside. Touch grass. See the world. To which I respond, no. No. Stay inside. Write. Paint. Sketch. Read. Think about things. In my experience, again, the subterranean code of go outside has always been stop thinking. Sometimes, when it comes to wise old philosopher life advice like this, the stop thinking part will be explicitly said. It is never a good idea to stop thinking. I don't know why we ever got into that idea, but it's never a good idea to do that. You have, as we're going to be getting to on this list, you have an unending eternity of non-existence to not think. So if the code speak of get outside is stop thinking, then the code speak is wrong. But let's move on to wise old piece of advice number 4. Piece of advice, number 4 of what I may or may not have learned or certainly been told upon reaching the age of 28. And that is, love everybody. Just love everybody. To which I respond, no. No. Plenty of people in the world richly deserve to be hated. This kind of gummy love everybody mantra, first of all, is never actually lived by the people who proclaim it. Never. Never. That never happens. The wide, misty-eyed old philosopher who's telling you, love everybody, man, is full of hate. There are plenty of people that person hates. Plenty of people deserve hating. Again, as we've said before, you should police your actions along those lines. You should police your reactions to people along those lines. You shouldn't hate indiscriminately or just because it's a South Boston indoor sport. But plenty of people deserve it. And when you think about it, somebody who says love everybody is basically saying that their love is meaningless. Love is earned. So if you're looking at, in this instance, a camera, and just wise old philosopher saying, love everybody, what you're saying is your love is meaningless. No one has to do anything to earn it. Which is a pretty bad insult to the people that maybe you do love. So love everybody is another wise old piece of life advice that I'm going to reject. Then we get to piece of life advice number 5. Oh my. I'm sorry. It's a real doozy. And that is to find God. To which I respond, no. No. Goblins don't exist. There is no proof. There never has been any proof. There is no indication. It's not just a matter of proof. Nothing anywhere in the observable world, in the observable universe, nothing anywhere in our lives, none of it looks anything like anything that would be created or overseen by magical creatures, by goblins of any kind. It doesn't look that way. It doesn't seem that way. We have to rationalize to make it come out that way. And the minute you get into the outside world that you want me to go out and experience, none of it looks like it was goblin-inspired of any kind. Much less deciding to pick which of the 50,000 gods that humans have had you're going to say is the right god to go and find. Usually the wise old philosophers who say find God, when you push them on the right god, they know that the game is up if they say, that's my goblins that I'm talking about. So they'll get even mistier-eyed and say, I'm talking about the divine in everything, man. But no, you're not. All the gods contradict each other. So you're not talking about the divine. You're talking about the religion you were brainwashed in as a child. That's all. Instead, what you should do is take responsibility for your actions. Take responsibility for crafting your own morality. Take responsibility in this life. Usually, it's been my experience that, again, if we're talking about the background code, what's actually being said by these dictates, usually find God means I want to dictate your behavior through my religion. I want to morally judge your behavior, not because I have estimated whether or not it's right and wrong, but because I want a stick to beat you with. And arguing morality with you isn't a big enough stick. So I want a God to do that. You shouldn't do that. There aren't any gods. Better by far for you to live your life in the obvious knowledge of that fact, rather than haul in an epic fantasy novel in 10 parts and try to browbeat people along the dictates of that fantasy novel. But that was controversial. We'll move on to piece of life advice number 6, which is unbelievably, it happens in videos like this, in lists like this all the time. It's like the gurus and the wannabe gurus who make these lists have no self-awareness, because always on the list somewhere is our number 6, which is don't take yourself too seriously. Who would slurp sententiously from a big mug and look all wise and serene and philosophy and make a list like this if they weren't taking themselves too seriously? Who would do that? It's part and parcel of making a list like this that you have failed already at this particular precept. You are already taking yourself way, way too seriously. And I know that the gurus and the would-be gurus who say these sorts of things will immediately follow up with, you guys, you just don't know. I'm actually a real goofball when I'm not on camera. Okay, but you're trying to scam the incels for as much money as you can get by acting like you're never a goofball. So I don't really believe you, and it doesn't matter anyway, because you're never showing that to the marks that you want money from. Usually, the code for don't take yourself so seriously. Usually the code lurking at the back of that is don't take anybody else seriously, especially women. But I think that's unhealthy. That's really bad. Instead, you should take yourself seriously. Not too seriously, of course. You shouldn't be too serious about it. But you should take yourself seriously. Some things are serious. Don't take yourself too seriously harks right back to don't sweat the small stuff, implying or outright saying that there is no small stuff, that it's all small stuff. It's not all small stuff. Some of it is serious. Some of it deserves to be taken seriously. Why you would do this, why you would create this persona, which is so obviously false, as we're going to be getting to, there are a couple of things, a couple of tiny little material elements I could remove from your life that would suddenly have you thinking that a lot of things are serious and that nothing is small stuff. Why do this? I can answer that question. The people who make these kinds of lists and make these kinds of ridiculous pronouncements want to seem like wise authority figures, old hermits on the top of mountains. And they want to do that to enhance their believability for the gullible incels for whom these videos and these lists are directed. And why? Not to help them. Fleece them. For money. Money is the goal of these things. So feel free to take yourself seriously when you're serious. If you are a firefighter, helpline operator, during an emergency, take yourself seriously. But then let's move on to precept number 7, shall we? It's a real doozy. Number 7 would be surround yourself with great people. To which my response would be, no. Your friendships aren't job interviews. Your friends are not props or supporting characters in a drama where you are the main character. In other words, the tried and true dude bro mantra of you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with couldn't be more wrong or more insulting to the people you call your friends. They aren't supporting bit characters in the main drama of your life. They aren't also building components to your life, which is exactly how they're characterized when you play this out. That I'm surrounded by good people, and they all contribute to making me the emperor, the master of my domain, the builder of empires that I am destined to be. They don't do that. They don't build any empires. I'm not a composite of them. They're a composite of me. They're a component of going into my greatness. It's just a little bit overweening. Your friends are actually individual people. They aren't factors in the denominator of the great grand integer that ends up being you. They aren't supporting characters in your main drama. You shouldn't think about them that way. It's just an idea there. Then we'll move on to precept number 8, which is don't be so reactive, man. Not everything needs a reaction. Not everything's an emergency. This harks back to number 2. This harks back to don't sweat the small stuff. And oh, by the way, it's all small stuff. So your parents being bilked by a telemarketer and being out of their life savings so that they can't live in their home anymore, it's small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff. But you, you going through any kind of inconvenience whatsoever, suddenly that's not small stuff at all. It's an insultingly very cod philosophy, self-absorbed way to think. And don't be reactive is the same thing. It's a variation on that same theme. You are here to react. You are here to care. You are here to think vigorously, energetically, and happily about everything that happens, not just to you, but to everything, including out there in the world. Oftentimes, the bro-tube philosophers or wannabe philosophers who make lists like this will explicitly tie maxims like don't be so reactive or don't take things so seriously to politics. Often they will say, like for instance, our politics are so polarized. Take it from me. This upcoming election is unimportant. None of this stuff matters, man. None of it matters. Obviously, if a major candidate for political office is threatening to create a dictatorship in which you will all be servants and not citizens, that is not immaterial. That does actually matter. You should actually care about that. That can actually happen. And a rule on a list like this that just complacently says, oh, no, it can't. This is unimportant, is just a reflection of American arrogant complacency. You ought not to take it seriously. would be. Well, let's move on to precept number 9, shall we? Which is to enjoy silence. Enjoy silence, man. To which my response would be, no. Make noise. You're only here for a tiny amount of time. Make noise. Enjoy noise. Revel in noise. It has been my experience, if we're talking about the hidden codes in these kinds of dude bro maxims, there's always one like this on lists like this. There's always a maxim like, savor silence. Take time to ponder. There's always a maxim like that. And again, as with everything else on a list like this, there's a code. There's an unspoken code for what is really being said here. And in my experience, the thing that is really being said by men, it's invariably men who make these lists, when they say, I like to just go out on the patio or the porch or out into the woods or in a boat on the pond and just revel in silence. I like to do that, man. It's important. It's been my experience that 99.9% of the time, what they mean is I value my smoking time. That's almost always what they mean. I'm going out into these interludes where I ponder. Not because you care about pondering, but because one of the small stuff that you're definitely sweating is your drug addiction. Whether it's bourbon, or whether it's alcohol, or whether it's tobacco, usually the guru or the wannabe guru who is saying, I like to go out and just savor the silence and ponder. If a god, the god that they believe in, were to come down from Mount Olympus and say, all right, you can go out and savor the silence all you want. You can soak up nature all you want, but you can't smoke while you're out there. Well, all of a sudden you wouldn't do it. Not a chance in hell. You wouldn't be even remotely interested in doing it. You will have an eternity of silence to savor when you're dead. Okay? So then we can get to the last precept on this list. It usually is the last precept on lists like this. Because you got to hydrate. There's no chance you can get through a 20-minute video without hydrating. All right? That's just inhuman. All right, you can't expect someone to go through a video without hydrating. I mean, that's just crazy. So the 10th item here on a list like this is life is beautiful. So don't waste time. The one element of life that you can't get back is wasted time. And believe it or not, my answer to this is yes. It's not no. It's yes. That is true. Life is extremely precious. Time is extremely irreplaceable. You can't go back and get it. I don't know quite how this jibes with be silent or don't overthink things, don't think at all, go out and just be one with nature, touch grass and zone out. I also don't know how it jives with believing in a God who is promising you an eternity of life. For instance, a guru or a wannabe guru might make a video like this, and in the no God part of the video, they might say, I know for sure that Jesus died for my sins, and that therefore I am immortal. I am going to live literally beyond the bounds of time forever. Well, if that's true, then how does that go along with valuing every moment of life? If somehow some version of you is going to be alive 10 million years from now, are you going to remember the 60 years that you smoked cigars on the patio when you were on Earth? I don't think you're even going to remember that happened. Do you remember 60 seconds from 40 years ago? I don't think you do. So how do those two things go together? They don't go together is the point here. They don't go together. Items like this are what Daniel Dennett used to refer to as deepities. They sound profound, especially if you squint a little and use that voice. Huh, guys? Huh, you miserable insults? I kind of want your subscription fee for my multi-step plan or my flavored water testosterone boosters. I kind of want your subscription fees for that. And to get them, I will squint my eyes a little, look into the middle distance from time to time, and use that voice. Huh? Life is beautiful. Time is precious. Don't waste time. But, at least on paper, I theoretically agree. Life is precious. You should live it that way, which entails being loud. It entails caring. It entails making noise. It entails sweating the small stuff. It entails reacting to all sorts of things. All sorts of things. Because it's not just an eternity of darkness and non-existence. If we are not immortal, you are not going anywhere. It's not just an eternity of non-existence that you're going to have to not do any of those things. The sad reality is that thanks to the advances in Western medicine, it's also the last 20 years of your life. And you're going to be here for those. You're going to be awake and alive for those. You're going to know that what's happening. Where all of a sudden the circumference of your world gets smaller and smaller, and suddenly you'd give anything to be able to overreact, to react to things, to care about things, to sweat the small stuff. You'd give anything to do that. There's a retirement community just up the road from me full of people who would like nothing better than to have their children come to them and complain about the small stuff. Oh my God. And to be consulted about those things, they'd love it. It would make their year. Doesn't happen. Children on the other side of the country, send them a Christmas card once a year. Doesn't happen. And they know it's not happening. So I'm not just talking about eternity here. I'm just talking about tonight. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about immediately. Most of the items on a pseudo profound list like this at the age of 28 I find I disagree with. So if I can make a list of 10 things that I disagree with, seems only right that I should make a list of 10 things that I do agree with, doesn't it? So I think I will do that. I will come up with a list of 10 things that I can share with you, 10 bits of wisdom, man, that I can share with you at the age of 28. I think that might be a video of interest. I'll make that video and post it this week. Until then, go outside. Touch grass. Really? It's important. Thank you, BookTube.